Welcome to Mansik Shakti Foundation. I am Amrish Srivastava, psychiatrist. One of the things which is very important happening around us is that people are talking about mental health. They are talking about mental health because there are people who are attempting suicide and people are dying due to suicide. The number of people, students, young children, they're found to be suffering from depression. And that's the reason people are awakened today. But the good part of it that there is discussion. We are also thinking how to prevent mental disorders. The book Mind Sciences deals with this aspect. But we have to first understand what is mental disorder and how does it develop. To gain an insight into it, let's ponder. Healthy childhood leads to healthy state of mind. It is the childhood which prepares the ground for future resilience. It is the childhood, the experience in childhood which prepares the ground and prepares you to take on the challenges of life, which everybody needs a good quantum of resilience. If your resilience is good, you are able to withstand challenges and your mental health is good. We must see this, how times have changed. If you remember 50 years back, our challenges were different, diseases were different, the discussion was different. But today, if you say, what are the problems our students are facing? These are, my dear friend, not depression alone, but much before depression strikes, problems like loneliness, hopelessness, sadness, impulsivity, anxiety, nervousness, these symptoms set in the mindset somehow. From where they crop in the canvas of life, we will discuss about it. But the fact is that if you go around in the community and see, you will find children lonely, adolescents restless. Why is that happening? One reason is that the childhood development has been severely affected. If you remember the World Mental Health Day theme this year, it was human right, managing the risk of mental health is one of the human right challenges. What is the message? It is not only that one has to identify psychiatric disorders alone, but the incumbent that we find out and identify what are the risks, what are the risk factors, what are the risk situations, who are the individuals who are at risk for developing a mental disorder or a mental health challenge or a mental health condition, whatever we call it. But a disturbance in mental functions, who are the candidates who will develop it, is today's versatile research area. An area of deep thinking for the people at large. We must understand that by recognizing only psychiatric disorder, we would be able to target only, say, about 12 to 13% of the population of youngsters. The number of our people, say about 35% of our population is in the universities. Huge number. And it's a big responsibility on the state, on the community, and society to identify those who are definitely not going to do that well as a counterpart will do. Those who are suffering from mental disorder or mental health challenges do not do well in their exams, career, in life if their condition is not treated. So it is not only that one has to identify psychiatric disorders, but it is also important to identify those who are at a risk of developing a psychiatric disorder. So who are the people who carry heightened risk of psychiatric disorders. Number one, we can very easily identify mental disorders precisely arise due to genetic factors and environmental factors, due to biological factors and social factors, due to metabolic or biochemical factors and ecological factors. Multiple factors come together, combine in a strange manner that we do not know how, but they develop a propensity to develop mental disorder. And at a given point of time, when their stressful condition is very high, the symptoms start appearing. So until the symptoms develop, they remain at risk. Once the symptoms begin, they develop mental health condition. So everybody who is in the business of managing mental health must know how to identify mental disorders and how to identify risk for the mental disorder. Today, mental health risk is a human right condition, because your risk is my responsibility and managing my risk is your responsibility. That is how each one of us in the community are interrelated. That is how it is a collective responsibility. And that is how it is job not only of the governments but also of people at large to participate, to form a consortium and function in a strategic manner, plan, implement the policies for identification of mental health challenges and identification of people who have heightened risk of mental health. So first, those who have any blood relative suffering from a mental disorder carry a very high risk of mental disorder. We do not know how these genes pass from one generation to another generation. Probably not a single gene which is responsible, but multiple genes combined in a strange manner pass on to next generation, and in a given set of ecological condition, in a given set of stressful condition, these genes starts manifesting. They start producing metabolic changes which lead to psychological changes, which gets manifested in form of behavior change, mood change, cognition change, etc. And one life becomes difficult. That is how mental disorders develop, the genetic conditions. The second most important thing, if a mother who is pregnant is either suffering from a mental disorder or is subject to very high quantum of social and psychological stress, the evidence in research suggests that the child who is going to be born is going to be a high-risk person for developing a mental health condition. It is not necessary it is not well known which kind of stress and how much stress during pregnancy is directly related. But overall, the research areas have identified that if a pregnant mother is going through a stressful time, the child in adolescence, in childhood, or when becomes adult, and if develop a mental disorder, that mental disorder will be of a different nature, will be more difficult to treat and may not have that good outcome. So risk is high if mothers are suffering from high social and psychological stress. The third important part is childhood development. How mother and child relate, how their psychosocial and biological bond is established. If there is no isolation, if there is no abuse, no trauma, no isolation, no separation, and the childhood event in first 2 years of life is very good, the chances of developing mental disorder would be far more lesser. This leads to a good resilience, good quantum of resilience. The fourth is important domestic condition. There is evidence that if there is domestic violence, abuse, trauma, socio-economic pressure, and subhuman conditions, poverty in the family, the children are more likely to suffer from mental disorders. So these are some of the areas, and let me also mention addiction is very important. Even when a pregnant mother is in an environment where people are drinking and behaving in a different manner that poses a threat, psychological threat to mother, which impacts the child. And therefore, one has to be very careful. So safe motherhood, safe pregnancy, safe childhood are three very important conditions for developing a very good quality of resilience and reducing the chances of developing mental disorder. This is what has been discussed in the book Mind Sciences, which is proposed as a course to be taught to students so that they gain insight, develop understanding, and develop methodology of leading a good, organized, and a good conduct life and prevent their own mental health.